Hi, I'm Kenny Klaus, and this is State 48 Homeowner.
Hey everybody, and welcome to the State 48 Homeowner Podcast for the June real estate market update. So what is the update on the market, guys? We've got Steve Farrington and Kraig Klaus.
Yeah, I think it's in flex. It's changing all the time. This time last year, the market was in full retreat. We hit the peak of our price per square foot of closed sales at June 10th of last year at $306 a square foot. We're currently at $283. Now that's up $4 a square foot from last month. The weakness of supply is the main factor to consider right now. Despite the low number of homes going under contract, the number of homes for sale dropped another 6% last month. We're down under about 11,500. But unless we get a significant reduction in mortgage rates, the affordability will remain a major problem. It will constrain the volume of sales. The number of transactions overall has been down significantly.
And we're looking to see that's going to be the case in June, July.
It's going to probably, unless we get a big dramatic drop in rates, it's going to continue that route because, again, we've said it before, if you're in a 3% mortgage right now, are you really going to try to downsize into a 7% mortgage, and that...
And I think the inventory is a big piece of that too, because buyers just can't find what they need. And especially in some price points, it's just, they're looking for unicorns now that used to be a pretty common house.
Well, and that's the thing is, despite the constrained sales volumes, it's unlikely to put a downward pressure on pricing. Instead, we are more likely to see a long-term price appreciation trend setting in once more, with the chronic shortage of supply the main reason for that. Right. Now, the good news is because of the lack of supply, prices have increased, and we're closed price per square foot's up 9% for the year, or for the last 5 months, and which is putting us on pace for 20% year over year. I don't expect that that's where it'll end, but again, unless we start seeing supply increase, that's not going to change anytime soon. But we're basically, the market is starting to show signs of slowing down as we hit into the summer. We've had 3 weeks in a row, the number of contracts for the week has gone down. We do have, of the 17 major cities, 15 are in a seller's market, 2 are in a balanced market. So we have none of the major cities in a buyer's market right now. Yeah. So that's kind of a recap over where we're at. Again, we're basically down 7.3% from last month in active inventory, which has continued that. We were at just over 21,000 in October. We're at 11,500 now. The under contract is what's really interesting. We're still over 9,000 homes under contract, and we're at 5,400 beginning of the year. So we're still seeing an increase in that aspect of it, but it's going to continue to fall a little bit.
We're seeing a big drop off just in the last 2 weeks of new things going under contract. It's just
and that's what we're 3 weeks in a row now. We've had that fall, which means that the sales are lagging, and we'll transition to that. Our monthly median sales price is up 2.1% from the beginning of the month. We're at 440. It was 417 the beginning of March. So we're seeing that kind of starting to come back. Still year over year down a little bit, but overall from beginning of the year, from the end of the slowdown in middle of November last year, since we're starting to see prices heading back up due to lack of supply.
Right. So on your listings, when it's priced right, when it's presented well, what are you seeing as far as number of offers?
Typically, you're still going to get multiple offers. What I'm seeing right now is a pool is a big factor. If you put something
it's a little warm.
It's a little warm. Yeah, I was going to say, when it gets to be 100 degrees, it becomes a major...
Yeah. No, and I think if it has something unique, pool, 3 cars, something different right now, you should be getting multiple offers on it if it's priced correctly right from the beginning. And that's going to be the key because we're still going to get greedy and overprice a little bit, and then we're chasing it down. And that's usually a good indication of things.
We're seeing a lot of buyers in the under 450.
100%.
Really, really looking for stuff.
Yep. Yeah, anything under 500 right now, just from an affordability standpoint. Because a lot of your buyers are first-time buyers, or people haven't bought in a while, because they don't know the difference between, they didn't have a 3% mortgage. Right. And so,
and they changed the definition. First-time home buyer technically for Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac is anybody that hasn't been on title to a property in the last 3 years.
Yes, understood. But what Craig's talking, a lot of these are people that have been chronic renters for years, and they're like, hey, it's time. They just saw all this increase that we saw over the last couple of years, and I need a piece of that pie, and then coming to realize that, wow, there just isn't that much out there in that price point.
Yep. Oh, and I think looking back, people that waited, right? I mean, if you were January, February looking to buy and you waited thinking rates were going to be better than that, you've lost 9% appreciation that you could have gained.
Well, it was either waiting for rates to get better or for prices to dramatically drop. I mean, where's the wave of foreclosures that everybody was talking about several months ago? So
we would welcome them right now. I mean, not for the people that go through it, but for the supply.
For the supply.
Right, 100%. I mean,
100%.
If there was 2 million foreclosures that hit the market in the entire country right now, they'd be snatched up and it wouldn't affect pricing at all.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing.
So, Steve, what can we do about those rates?
I can't do anything about them, but the trend is in the right direction. I mean, the May consumer inflation report came out June 13th, and it actually was favorable. I mean, year over year, we're talking June 2022, 9.1% CPI headline inflation. With today's report, it dropped to 4%. That's a pretty significant drop. And that is that result, as I've talked about, with those 10 increases by the Federal Reserve rate that the Fed's done. And then the anticipation is with this drop, and again, we have a Fed meeting tomorrow, June 14th, where they're going to come out with their Fed rate decision. The expectation is that they're going to skip. I hear the word pause. It won't be a pause. It'll actually be a skip, and they'll skip this meeting for a potential rate hike and then look forward to July, meaning that they're going to see what happens with the next consumer and wholesale inflation reports in July, see if they can get June and July to continue that trend down and then give us some direction going forward. So that's kind of, we're at that precipice of where rates are going to go. They've at least held steady in the high sixes, low sevens, depending on your borrower or
it's been
scenario.
Pretty consistent for a while.
It's been consistent, which is good.
Yeah.
I mean, the stabilization of it is nice when you go from 6.5 to 7.25 in 4 trading days.
Yeah.
That's shocking because you have people that are pre-approved or pre-qualified, and then all of a sudden maybe they can't buy as much. Their buying power goes down in a 4-day span. So the consistency is nice. Dropping would be even better, and I see that trend coming with the consumer inflation report. We get wholesale inflation right before the Fed makes their rate decision on June 14th, and that wholesale inflation should continue to trend down as well. I mean, that was upwards of 11%, meaning the cost of goods to manufacturers. It was 11% this time, June 2022, a year ago. It's probably going to be projected to be about 1.5%. That's a pretty significant drop. Now, hopefully that means that manufacturers, wholesalers, retailers will start reflecting that in some of the prices that they're charging consumers. So,
because there's some of that they're trying to make up for the past, and that's the tough part. Yeah.
Well, just like used cars.
Right.
I mean, the reason that the core consumer inflation didn't come down as much as wanted, the expectation was met, but investors now are getting a little greedy. They want a little bit more. Go figure. But used cars, of all things, and auto insurance were 2 major components that caused it to hit that expectation number.
Well, the auto insurance because, it costs more to pay out because, the comps are higher, and then it comes back to those chips.
We talked about before we were recording, you mentioned, I mean, you still have some of that residual effect from the chip shortage, which caused supply shortage. We're back to supply and demand. The same thing with housing. You're seeing it reflected in used car prices because, again, of that shortage that we saw of new supply coming to market. And now, again, housing and autos, it seems odd that they're kind of mirroring each other since the pandemic. But it's one main component, but it's not a huge factor. It was just something that it would have been nice to get an extra 0.2 drop.
But you also mentioned that repos are up.
Repos are up significantly. Edmunds and Car Guru both mentioned that repossessions have almost tripled.
On auto.
In the last few months, and they project it to even go further into the second half of the year. And it's just because, the average car payment in America is about $834. And now with the student loan deferment and payment pause.
Yeah, people had more money, and then,
Absolutely.
stimmy checks, people had more money. Things didn't cost as much, people had more money. And I think as inflation stays high, as far as the cost of goods,
right.
People could put up with that for a little while, but then as they start to realize the hit, they're just going to pause all spending, which is just not a good thing for the economy.
No,
absolutely not. And that's
especially if it's spending on things that will drastically change your future, like
right.
a home purchase when you're renting.
Right.
Well, and then and Kraig's point with foreclosures, we don't want anybody to go through it, but that supply would be a welcome demand. The same thing with potential car repossessions is that, now you're going to see that used car price come down because now you've got retailers or car dealers that need to dump these repossessed cars on the market, and they've already cut their loss. So again, it's just that supply and demand and price. We're just looking strictly at the numbers, not the emotion of it. But again, it could be a little bit of a welcome sight. But overall, inflation continues to trend down.
The economy's in trouble when used cars are appreciating.
Yeah,
and that was a bad sign.
Backwards,
right?
Yeah.
But everything else is coming down. We've seen food, we've seen energy, we've seen shelter costs continue to trend down, and shelter cost is now starting to hit that precipice where it's going to start adding to the fuel of overall headline and core inflation.
Yeah, because year over year, shelter cost is down.
Absolutely.
When you go back to the peak of what people were paying, even if we look at the price per square foot of closed sales in real estate, and then you talk about rental prices have come down a lot from the peak.
Mm-hmm.
I always explain it to people. The simplest way I had it explained to me is that when you're talking about the Fed, when you're talking about economic figures, imagine yourself going down the freeway, the 202, the 101, and instead of looking out your windshield of where you're going, you're driving by looking in the rearview mirror. Mm-hmm. And that's exactly what, unfortunately, the Federal Reserve has to deal with, and that we're dealing with when the June number comes out. It's May. When the auto numbers come out for appreciation of used cars, that's from April. Everything's looking in the rearview. I don't want you to drive looking in the rearview mirror, but unfortunately, that's kind of where the Federal Reserve drives our economy, is by driving looking in the rearview mirror instead of out the windshield.
Same with appraisers, right? We say all the time, appraisers are looking backwards.
Absolutely.
They're looking at closed sales backwards, from 3 months ago, 2 months ago, in a market that's appreciating, say, 2% a month, and that's the key to preparing for an appraisal is being able to give them that data to show the appreciation. If you're looking at a closed sale from 3 months ago, we have to look at the market difference and what's changed in that time. So similar type thing. They're looking backwards, trying to dictate today's information.
Going forward. But if we're talking about mortgage interest rates, I definitely see the trend continuing downward. I like the steadiness of, being, unfortunately they're in the high sixes, but I like the high sixes better than I like the low sevens.
Do you think we'll see under 6 in the next 3 months, 4 months?
I think you'll see it by the end of the year. Okay. I'll promise you that. I think we'll see
something.
I promise you that.
Ooh, I heard a promise.
That's like Kenny with the hub. It'll be 2022. Then it'll be 2023.
Oh man, come on! I'm hoping for a soft opening.
Yeah,
but yeah, no, I do. I really do. I promise. Yeah, I promise. And if it doesn't, like Kraig always says, if it doesn't come true,
nobody will remember.
Nobody remember I said it.
Oh, it's on YouTube.
It's on YouTube. But no, I really do. I honestly see the trend. It's just that all of these things, that residual of effect of what we went through in 2021, 2020, 2021, the first part of 2022, you got to shake that out. It's been exactly 1 year. Look how far we've come. 11.1% June 2022 consumer inflation. We were feeling some pain. Excuse me, that was wholesale. We were 9.1% consumer inflation in June 2022. We're now at 4%.
Right.
That's a significant drop. And again, we're not paying $8 for a dozen eggs anymore.
Right.
Oil's come down. We're not.
No, they were actually. I went in there. It was like 99 cents each.
Yeah, now they're trying to dump them, right? Supply and demand.
Yeah,
amazing how
got
that
many
eggs per egg. I'm like, wait a minute, that's like $12. No, and it's interesting because I go back to. We've said it all year, and we kept saying the number 5 in front of them, but obviously we're probably not going to see that, or we don't expect to. But it is amazing to think that we are dropping inventory to the level we are with rates where they're at. Right. If they drop 1% and we're at 6%, if we're going to be at 7,000 active listings like that, because there's a lot of pent up sitting on the sidelines. You have a lot of sellers that want to move, but they don't want to give up that rate.
Yep.
You've got buyers that can't afford to get where they want. Another 1% drop in rate might have
Absolutely.
changed
But
that.
you also have sellers that don't want to move because there's no inventory to
Correct.
move to. You know,
On top of that.
In banks and lenders, there's things out there that if you're getting quoted a 6.85% or a 7.25% on your loan, if you're getting a seller concession, you can do a 1% buy down, the temporary buy down, but you can do it using those seller concessions. Again, you can't qualify on that lower rate, but you can get something in the sixes to see where rates go.
That's where the challenge goes back to, though, with low inventory. It's hard to get seller concessions potentially because you may be in a multiple offer situation.
Amazing this tug of war we're having, isn't it?
And I just go back to, again, like I mentioned earlier, if you were waiting in February and then you decide to buy today, you lost 9% appreciation to try to hopefully save 1% in a mortgage rate.
Yeah.
The math doesn't add up.
And that's always been our message to people is like if you're waiting, again, if you're waiting for that collapse, that crash, that drop, whether it's rates or prices, it's the supply and demand thing. Look where we are.
There's just not enough inventory. And going back to what we mentioned even before with the water thing and the governor, making it so that new projects with the 100-year water plan and all of that, we're not seeing a new increase of new homes coming. It's not like all of a sudden builders are going to go, oh, look, there's an opportunity. Let's go build.
No, in fact, they've slowed down.
Correct.
Just not even counting, the governor canceling those contracts on. Now, those are just developments that all of their 100-year water supply is groundwater. And if you didn't catch it, we had a podcast episode with Scott Summers from the Mesa City Council who came in here and talked about all the things that Mesa is doing. Other cities are the same. We're being smart as far as water goes. It's not crazy like the media is saying it is. If we're talking water shortage, we're decades and decades and decades away. It's that pre-planning, which is smart. I'm glad that they're doing
Absolutely.
But
there's a lot of money
despite
on
that,
the
we're
line.
not seeing, any speed up in
No.
new build.
And after they pulled back last summer on new project they were pinning, now if they're trying to start them back up again, you're still a year out from when those are going to be ready to be going. And
Right.
Yeah, and I think that
which they're not sitting on inventory either.
No,
They're,
not
whenever
any
they
new
build it,
right now. There's
people
no
are
specs
buying
available,
it. No.
and even the ones that, because you're going to have some people that went under contract on a new build a year and a half ago or 14 months ago when rates were completely different. Now can't afford it, and if that goes back as a spec, they're selling that right away. So it's not,
and that doesn't work out too bad for them either.
not at all.
We just closed a new build that was right at 2 years. It's a long time to wait for.
It's a lot of appreciation.
A lot.
And like we talked about, people waiting for interest rates to come down, is that if you can get your home, if you can afford the payment, if you can get in there, qualify, find a home, as they continue to rise and appreciate, interest rates will come down.
Right.
They will come down.
Correct.
That's the thing that people have to remember, that interest rates will eventually come down, that you can refinance that rate. Your payment's only going to go down with the opportunity to refinance. And if we continue with home price appreciation, then you can get rid of your PMI, your private mortgage insurance, which is another monthly expense as the home appreciates over the next year, 2 years, 3 years. That fear of going in now because rates are too high or prices are where they're at is basically just, you're frozen by fear to where, look ahead, look out the windshield instead of the rear view mirror. Like, let's look out the windshield and say, like, gosh, do I want to swallow a 7.125% interest rate? But guess what? I can get into a home today. Steve promised rates are going to go down. and as they do, then you can, call any bank or lender, me, and refinance at lower rate. And even people that are in their homes that don't want to sell because they have a 3% interest rate, I've done refinances for people, and of course they're having to go at a higher interest rate than that 3 or 3.5 or whatever their interest rate is, but they're paying off these variable rates, which have gone up as the Federal Reserve raises their rate. That's what it really affects.
Right, the HELOCs and the
credit card, APRs, auto loans, short term. Anything less than 10 years is considered a short term loan. HELOCs have almost doubled in interest rates from their introductory rates. So people are going to start feeling that pain as well. So don't get too married to that 3. if you're paying 11, 12, 15, 20% on your APRs and your rent, car, all of those other items.
Yep.
This video is brought to you by Klaus Team Real Estate Solutions. The Klaus Team is different. With the Klaus Team, you have someone on your side. Where you live and make memories is important. We have more unique strategies than anyone else to help you accomplish what matters most to you. We can help you with traditional real estate as well as other options such as our lease purchase programs. We can help you buy first then sell, and we can bring you instant offers. We're here to help our neighbors achieve the American dream and help them build wealth through home ownership. For more info or to start your home search, visit us online at klausteam.com.
No, and I think, again, it just goes back to it's supply and demand, and we don't have enough supply. Prices can't go anywhere but up. I mean, there's a housing shortage in this country that's not going to change overnight, and so
No, people are still having babies.
it's weird.
Yeah.
1.4 million households formed a year, 1.2 million homes built. We're not catching up.
We're not catching up.
No, and if you are on the fence and waiting for, worried about home affordability and just waiting for things to change, do we see any sign that prices are going to come down?
Not in the next year.
Yeah.
I mean, unless something, again, if you asked me in February of 2020 what the rest of that year would be like, I wouldn't have known what was going to happen. But based just strictly on the way things have progressed and the lack of supply with low demand, our demand is not through the roof like it was 2 years ago. I mean, our demand is below average. And so we're still seeing price appreciation. We're still seeing inventory coming down. Again, that can't change quickly. It takes time to go to become oversupplied from so dramatically undersupplied. Right. If balanced is 20 to 25,000 and we're at 11,000 going down, we got a ways to go.
Yep. Steve, how painful is it for somebody to meet with you for the first time to get started on that home purchase journey?
It's painless. It's not painful at all. 0%. It's absolutely.
What does it look like? What generally do they need to round up to give to you on?
Honestly, really, what I want is one of three things. It's the CIA of mortgage. It's just the three legs that stool stands on. It's your credit, it's your income, it's your assets. Just have an idea of what your credit is. I don't need a credit report. If you have an idea of what your income is, if you have a current pay stub and a W-2, great. And then your assets. If you do have ability to. For your down payment and or closing costs, where's that going to come from? Is it coming from a checking, a savings, a 401k, an IRA, maybe a gift from a family member? I mean, just have an idea, and really that's it. I don't need all the documentation. I prefer to actually sit down with somebody, talk for 15 to 30 minutes, sometimes an hour if we get along, joking, and then and just kind of answer their questions, quell their fears, look at the numbers, because that's what I deal with. Let's look at the numbers and see what you really can afford. What do you want and what can you afford, and let's go forward from there.
Well, and I think the thing that we've always done, I know you do the same, is we're not going to try to talk somebody into something that they don't like. I mean, I was supposed to meet with a client yesterday I met with a year ago, and I basically told her it was June of last year. It was a rental. It didn't have a pool. She wasn't needing to sell. I said, it's probably not the greatest time right now if you don't need to sell. So she was very appreciative of that. We connected again. She thought about it. We were going to meet. She was getting. Then she said, I want to wait a few more months. And no problem. I mean, I'm not. Again, we want what's best for you. We want you to feel comfortable. We want to give you all the data, all the information, our expectations, and then let you make that decision.
Absolutely. And most individuals or couples that I meet with, they're typically 3 to 6 months out.
Yeah.
And that's
we
fine
love
with
that.
Let's make a plan.
I love that as a listing agent.
Yeah,
I don't
get
no
a lot
problem
more-
going to meet with somebody if they're a year out or 6 months. Gives us time to
Absolutely.
plan. Now,
Yeah,
if you want to
more
list Friday, I
solutions.
can do that too. But
Well, and we're all about that. I mean,
Right.
that's really kind of what we do. I mean, we've had people here that we've worked with for 2 years, and
Oh,
then we
easily.
finally help them either buy and sell or sell then buy, or whatever direction they decide to go in. So to answer your question, it's to meet with any of us here, it's completely painless. You get real information. Don't Google it, because the first 40 pop-ups are going to be ads.
That's it.
But yeah, just give me a call, man. Even if it's just a chat on the phone for 15, 20 minutes. I love it.
So to start the conversation with anything regarding buying or selling real estate in Arizona, just reach out to Steve or any of us by going to klausteam.com or calling 480-354-7344. Thanks a lot, guys.
Absolutely. Thanks, Scott.
See you.
Thanks for spending time with us this week at State 48 Homeowner, the ins and outs of owning an Arizona home. You can connect with us for more information, submit topics you'd like us to further discuss. You can see relevant videos, give us feedback, answer your real estate questions, and more at state48homeowner.com.